Hearing from President Biden next, but certainly the theme of the day is what this battle was all about and what it was not about. It was about values and a fight for freedom and for liberty and for democracy. And we hear that point already being made, Willie, as everybody seems to be marking that, especially on this 80-year anniversary, and perhaps given the challenges we are facing today.
Yeah, as the president of France, President Macron, continues to speak in French, we'll be listening in. He will switch to English in just a moment. We'll bring that to you live. Yeah, a powerful message from the Secretary of the American Battle Monuments Commission, Charles Ju, there about democracy, about the preservation of these ideals that we're celebrating today. And Mike Barnicle, you look through the crowd, you see the faces of men like those who were there, who still have that living connection to this hinge day in history 80 years ago. We also, by the way, saw the faces of Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg, much more than celebrity cameos there. They helped bring the story alive again in Saving Private Ryan. Spielberg and Hanks together taking an interest in the story in 1998. The images, that opening 20 minutes that can't be erased from your mind, that depict what happened on the beaches 80 years ago. Your impressions, though, so far of what we've seen and heard?
You mentioned, obviously this is the 80th anniversary, and many of the faces we're looking at on TV of the elderly veterans, many of them approaching 100 years of age, some over 100 years of age. This is their last tour of duty, no doubt. They will not be there for the 90th. I would not think so. But again, in the Spielberg, Tom Hanks combination, and what they did with that movie was they caused America, and many Americans who saw that film, for maybe just to stop and pause for maybe just a minute or two and think about who we are as a nation, what we were then and what we are today. And I think that's a good thing, Richard, because you just mentioned earlier the fact that we don't teach our children, young children, in grammar school and even in high school, our history, who we are as a nation, what we've done and what we still can do.
Yeah, we've got to, because we talk so much in this program, Mike, about democracy. It's worth preserving. We've got a lot to be proud of. This is a great example about how the United States, working with the other democracies, met the challenge of fascism in Europe and in Asia. And we've got to remind this next generation that we've accomplished great things, and we can again, but it takes collective effort. It doesn't just happen. Good things just don't happen because they should. And that's why, we've got to make the case for who we've been and who we are. And we just don't do it in our schools. We shouldn't take it for granted. We're 2 years away, literally 2 years and 1 month away from the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. We've got to make sure that we have it around for another 250 years. We shouldn't take it for granted.
And President Macron now speaking in English. Let's listen in.
Rangers, lead the way. Telle fut l'exclamation de Norman Cotta sous le feu de la mitraille à ses hommes, sous la pluie d'obus. Vous êtes venus ici, alors vous voilà à jamais chez vous, sur le sol de France, et nous n'oublions pas. À vous, hommes de la Great Generation, de nous enseigner à notre tour à être grands, à lutter pour la paix et la liberté du monde. À nos côtés, vous avez fait cette guerre et nous l'avons gagnée. Alors pour vous qui êtes là, et pour vos camarades qui ne le sont plus, et dont vous portez la mémoire en ce jour, pour votre bravoure, au service de notre liberté.
So President Macron had spoken to some of the American veterans in English for a moment there. He's back in French. We will come back to it in just a moment. Wanted to speak to you, Michael Beschloss, about some news that we're just getting that underlines the themes of alliances, the themes of pushing back dictators and authoritarianism. We learn now that President Biden will meet with President Zelensky, who has traveled from Ukraine to be in Normandy in a move of practical but also great symbolic significance.
Well, there are a lot of people who will rightfully say that perhaps that the president of Ukraine is not Churchill, but there is a parallel in that Churchill was asking Americans in 1940 and 1941 not to give our lives at that point, but to help him stand up to the dictatorships of Hitler and others. But I make one other point, Willie.
Yeah.
And that is that, we're talking about all these American and Allied soldiers, sailors, and airmen. They had been trained, at least the Americans were, in democracy. And every single one of them was a leader, because when you grow up in an American democracy, you learn to think for yourself. And that is one reason why democracies and America helped the Allies to win World War II in Europe, because as Hitler's regime crumbled, a lot of the soldiers who were Nazis and who'd grown up under that regime, they were used to looking to the top person to tell them what to do. Americans in all sorts of battle situations, such as those we saw in Saving Private Ryan, they thought for themselves. And the result was we saw that even in wartime, a democracy does a better job of fighting than a dictatorship.
Mm-hmm. We're watching right now, just live here in Normandy, French President Emmanuel Macron presenting the Legion of Honor. And again, these are the last survivors of the fight on D-Day. And this emotional commemoration is for them and for the sacrifice of their brothers on that day 80 years ago. Richard Haass, I do want to ask you more about the presence of Ukrainian President Zelensky and the move that he is making, given that Ukrainians know and believe and say out loud that they are fighting not just against Russian oppression, but for the safety of the world. And I'd love for you to talk more about the significance of that on this day.
Well, they are. It's important to Russia be frustrated that it cannot succeed. It's not just the threat to Ukraine, but potentially the threat to Europe. And we don't want the lesson to stand that aggression pays. Mm-hmm. It was the same reason, Mika, decades ago, the United States resisted what Iraq did in Kuwait. We didn't want the post-Cold War period to be one of open aggression. So Zelensky has a point, or I think there's potentially friction between the United States and Ukraine is going to be over the definition of victory, what has to be accomplished with arms. And I think that's a difficult conversation to come. But the basic idea that the United States has massive self-interest in making sure that Ukraine continues to be a viable, well-protected, successful country, absolutely true. And that's why it's important that President Zelensky is there.
So, Richard, let's revisit what we were talking about just before the ceremony began, the idea that there's going to be two different visions of American foreign policy, of American alliances and intervention around the world on the ballot this November between President Biden expressing faith in alliances, standing with Ukraine, versus Donald Trump, who at every chance he gets seems to side with Vladimir Putin and Russia, and we know nearly detonated NATO when he was in office some years ago. So just lay out for us the stakes here, but also how Europe is watching this and doing so warily.
Let me just make a couple of points. You're right. There's a fundamental difference. You can almost summarize it between alliance first and America first. And I think that's the difference between the Biden and Trump foreign policies. What's also different, Jonathan, is almost every other presidential election in a lifetime, even something like Goldwater Johnson, the similarities between the candidates was far greater than the differences. What's uncharacteristic about this election is the differences are greater than the similarities. There's not the presumption of continuity in American foreign policy, and that gets to your last question. When Europeans, when our allies in Europe and Asia look at us, they are uneasy, doesn't begin to capture it. This is something they were not prepared for because they had the expectation of continuity. That's what alliances are about. There's a certainty with alliances, or near certainty, and they no longer can have that. They no longer have that luxury, and they're going through really fundamental questions about what they do in a world where they can't rely on the United States with anything like the confidence that they have for the last 3/4 of a century, essentially since American entry into World War II, which is what we're we're watching today, the commemoration of that. And that's why it's really interesting. Here we have this election. Very few Americans are going to vote on the basis of foreign policy. Yet the foreign policy consequences of this election are potentially profound, and the rest of the world doesn't get a vote. Yet their lives are going to be affected by it, and that's why so much of the world is uneasy.
You know, what we're watching here stands to the point that you've been making, Richard, about the history of World War II, specifically the history of D-Day. We have seen a number of veterans being awarded a medal by the President of the United States and the President of France, many of them in wheelchairs, struggling to stand in order to receive the award that both presidents give them, struggling mightily to get up from their wheelchairs at the age of 98, 99, 100, and they do. They stand up. They push themselves hard and they stand up. The way they stood up 80 years ago this morning, jumping out of landing crafts, walking through water riddled with bullets, risking their lives as the men around them dropped. Over 2,400 killed on that beach in a matter of hours. This is a powerful, powerful ceremony we're watching.